everyone, welcome to week 7. I'm Jade and I'll be using the example of the Thai lake in China to show how the management of feedback and slow variables can contribute to increased resilience within a system. I'll be doing this by examining the effect excess nutrients has on lakes before reinforcing these concepts with a real-life case study. Resilience is the capability of a system to absorb change in disturbances while still retaining its basic structure and function. Feedback systems are a two-way connection between variables, which are either positive feedbacks or negative feedbacks. Negative feedback counteract disturbances, so the system is able to produce the same form of ecological service. As slow-moving variables push fast variables towards a threshold, the fast-moving variables in the system oscillate more in response to disturbances and become more variable. This form of interaction between fast variable and slow variables within feedback loops often happen in shifts from clear waters to algae-dominated ones. Typically, shallower lakes contain macrophytes, which are aquatic vegetation. They are important within a shallow lake ecosystem because they absorb excess nutrients. This is particularly useful with phosphorus and nitrogen, which can enter the water body and accumulate in large amounts due to runoff from industry and agricultural practices. The macrophytes behave as a negative feedback loop, as they counteract the impacts of the nutrients by absorbing them. As we have learned in previous weeks, a system has imposed limit of how much disturbance it can handle before resilience is lost. Feedbacks within the system can become overwhelmed and break down, creating the possibility for a new feedback connection and resulting in different ecological services. Factors such as increasing the intensity of agricultural practices and growing population may result in increased nutrients being distributed into the water as runoff. These are the slow variables impacting upon the system. Once the slow variables have overwhelmed the negative feedbacks, the macrophytes slowly start to reduce their ability to absorb nutrients, resulting in algal blooms. In turn, this decreases the amount of light due to the algal blooms and means that the macrophytes die off completely. There is a complete loss of negative feedback to regulate the excess nutrients. If humans were to attempt to revert the ecological system back to its original function, it would be very expensive and require much physical work as the algae needs to be physically removed. A real-life example of this concept occurred in Thai Lake in China, 100 kilometers out of Shanghai. The lake had been subject to algal blooms since 1980s. However, it used to be pristine and clear with a diverse range of macrophytes. Increasing population growth between 1850 and 1864 increased agricultural practices and nutrient runoff. This agricultural success resulted in further increase in population, which tripled by the start of the 21st century. This urbanization resulted in excess wastewater and wastewater treatment, which negatively impacted upon the nutrient cycle. These excess nutrients were also distributed into the lake, adding to the phosphorus and nitrogen concentrations. Natural macrophytes could not handle the increased level of phosphorus and nitrogen in the water and decreased to 5% by the end of the 1980s. The seriousness of the algal blooms were not completely understood until 2007, where the algal contamination resulted in 1 million people from Wuxi, a nearby city, not having access to suitable drinking water for a month. The breakdown of the negative feedback, the macrophytes, were not able to regulate excess nutrients, the slow variable. Therefore, resilience in the system broke down and moved to a new regime, which differed from the original clear waters of the lake. This brings us to the next question: how can we manage slow variables and feedback? Considering the above example, the emphasis placed on managing feedback and slow variables to prevent this form of change from occurring is crucial. The primary step in the management of these factors is identifying which ones influence and maintain the system to produce desired ecological services and strengthen the feedbacks that maintain the desirable system outcome. In the example of the Thai lake, the macrophyte and their ability to absorb nutrients was the crucial negative feedback that kept the system resilient. They absorbed the excess phosphorus and nitrogen, resulting in the clear water of the lake by preventing algal bloom. Therefore, the management of the lake must involve the care of these macrophytes if the ecosystem is to remain in its original regime. Managers can also avoid actions that are detrimental to the feedback. In the above case, decreasing or improving farming practices will reduce the stresses applied to the macrophytes. Managers can also monitor important slow variables. Understanding and monitoring slow variables will detect slow changes that may cause the system to cross a threshold. In the tire lake example, it is the accumulating nutrients of phosphorus and nitrogen in the form of excess runoff from agricultural practices and industry that are the slow variables. Now that these variables are identified, the manager should reduce impacts that increase them while monitoring them over time. Any potential alternative regime must also be detected, as this can assist managers with identifying other types of ecological thresholds and slow variables which drive a system. If they aren't detected, resilience and adaptive capability will not be able to occur, and managers will be unable to plan for future changes. Managing slow variables and feedback is critical in increasing resilience in systems. As shown in the above example, it is much more economically efficient to manage these components while the system is operating in a desired way, rather than to wait until the threshold has been crossed and the resilience has been lost. Managing feedback and slow variables contributes to increasing resilience, as it enables manipulation of the controlling variables and aids with avoiding potentially negative disturbance. Furthermore, being able to accurately identify these factors helps with being able to predict where the threshold in the system lies. Being able to predict the potential location of thresholds allows managers to predict potential future impacts of a system. Furthermore, through long-term correct management of these factors, ecological memory of the system will occur. This creates resilience by providing adaptive capability which enhances and increases resilience. Hopefully I have helped you guys to understand a little bit more about the benefits of managing slow variables and feedbacks in relation to increasing resilience. I'm looking forward to reading your responses in my discussion questions, and thank you for listening to my presentation, everyone. I'll talk to you throughout the week.